Now, these are my final thoughts on the class of 2024. This is a solid class. Checks a lot of boxes, depending on what recruiting site you look at, ranked 15th, 16th. It seems like the consensus is this is a top 15 recruiting class. And honestly, I think that's a little underrated. There's huge difference makers on this team. There's a few of them, like I'm talking program, faces of the program type of players. You also check a lot of needs that Penn State had. There are some things that they're missing, but let's break that all down. So some of those game changers that I'm referring to, guys that can take over a football game, have some of the most upside, are already day one. They can play, especially if they enroll early. Luke Reynolds, Quinton Martin, and Liam Andrews. Now, that's no disrespect to guys like Ethan Grunkemeyer, right? I think he can be a difference maker, but it's going to take some time. And there's, Drew Aller, there's Bo Prabula. But for Luke Reynolds, Quinton Martin, Liam Andrews, these guys can, if they enroll early, can play right away and can be contributors as true freshmen. Personally, my favorite player of the three is Quinton Martin. Quinton Martin is a two-way athlete, could play safety, could play running back. He's going to play running back. That's what he's been recruited at. Now, my preference is safety because he's got that ideal size, 6'2", probably could go all the way up to 220, 230 pounds. And that's a good size for running back as well. Them recruiting for Penn State to recruit Martin as a running back makes a lot of sense because you're hypothetically going to lose Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen in the same draft for the class of 2025. And with that kind of turnover, with not one, but two starters, two starting caliber running backs, guys who are all conference players, you need somebody ready to go, that top kind of talent. I'm not sure why Martin he's a high-end 4-star. I would rate him as a 5-star personally. Now, I'm not as invested in recruiting as much as people, but when I've watched him play in person, I've watched him take over games. And maybe that's where my bias comes from. But Martin will be a contributor. He might even compete for that third running back spot right as a true freshman and can be utilized in the kick return game. He's got to go along with that size. He's not, don't think of him as, well, he's 6'2", 200. He could projects at 230 pounds that he's going to be a bowling ball. No, he's an all around athlete. He can hit, he uses the hit stick, but he can also turn on the afterburners. You are truly getting a world class athlete in Quinton Martin, someone who's incredibly intelligent. So that speed combination, along with that size, is truly unfair when his potential is met. The next player on as far as game changers go is Luke Reynolds. Everybody's been talking about Luke Reynolds for a long time. Reynolds is a workhorse. You're getting not a consensus 5-star tight end, but someone who is 24/7 has him as a 5-star. He's a high-end 4-star by the other sites. Could play right away. He's going to be enrolling early. Of course, he's got exceptional hands. I mean, this was somebody, again, another little bit of bias here because I got to see him in person. State College, Pennsylvania had the Elite 11, and he showed up and he just dominated. He dominated the athlete side of it. Quarterbacks were throwing to him, and he was by far the best receiver there, beating all the other wide receivers out, the running backs, etc. He was the guy that, and he ended up being that MVP for the athletes, not the quarter. The quarterbacks had their own group, but the athletes that were there, he ended up being the MVP. Adam Brenneman, former Penn State tight end, has high praise for him. Mike Gesicki has offered some as well. He showed out, won MVP at Elite 11. That was all I needed to see. Former quarterback turned tight end, ideal size. Again, just kind of needs to add on the weight. 6'4". He's listed at 220 currently. If he can add on 20 or 30 pounds, I know that's a tall task to do. Tony Rojas did it at Penn State. So what's in the water in Happy Valley, right, that is able to get some of these younger players to put on the ideal size when they get to Penn State? If Luke Reynolds can follow that nutritional plan, he could be somebody that sees snaps right away, especially with Theo Johnson going over to the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to take away snaps from Khalil Dinkins or the likes of Tyler Warren if Tyler Warren comes back, but could be him, Andrew Rapplier, right? There's a lot of depth at tight end now, and Luke Reynolds, just from what we've seen, I think will get his opportunities. Someone else who could see opportunities right away, Liam Andrews, because he's already coming in with ideal size. Another player listed at 6'5", 260 pounds, was originally an offensive lineman, then flips over to defensive tackle. Someone who needs to add about 20 to 30 pounds to play right away. But if he enrolls early, he might honestly prove to be one of the better players in this entire class. I think that he's already a high-end 4-star. with the just because of the way that he plays. So he has ideal size, but it's the type of player that he is, the type of person. He's emotional, good emotion, right? Not reckless. He plays nasty. And I think that's what Penn State needs a little bit more of on defense. He plays with a nasty streak, high motor, plays past the whistle, but within reason, right? I'm not implying that he's racking up all these excessive penalties, but he plays mean, he plays physical. You opposing offensive linemen are not going to like going up against Liam Andrews if he's able to achieve his true upside. He understands since he played both ways. He played offensive line and he's played defensive line. Since he does, he has that advantage of understanding both techniques. And he's played anywhere on the defensive line, whether it's inside as a three technique, technique, but he has the ability to go and play defensive end if he really wanted to. That's how athletic he is. He's going to be a defensive tackle. He's going to add on that weight. And honestly, I can see him being a defensive captain when all said and done. Hopefully, I look great. I look smart by making this assessment 2 to 3 years down the road. Another player that I think is worth sharing is before we get to the quarterback in this class, Ethan Grunkemeyer, is Jon Mitchell. Jon Mitchell has the chance to be the best defensive back in Penn State's class for 2024. He has lockdown traits. He's very instinctive. 6 foot, listed at 180 pounds right now. So, of course, he'll add the size, but super athletic. And any of these kids are, but it's what he has shown when he's gone to these combines, when he's gone to these skills camps. Now, Mitchell is really fast, but it's the vertical. When he's gone to these combines, these skills camps, he shows that he has the highest vertical, one of the best jumpers. So it doesn't matter if the receivers are 6'4" or small, shifty 5'9" slot receivers. I feel like Jon Mitchell's versatility, you can ask him to cover any wide receiver that he has to go up against. And that's why I like Jon Mitchell as one of the better players in this class. But those are my big three. Jon Mitchell, not too far behind there. Let's discuss the quarterback because everyone wants to talk about QBs. Ethan Grunkemeyer. People criticize this for Penn State taking him on as a commit, a lowly 3-star, wasn't that good. Penn State settling. And now we look at the recruiting sites. ESPN has him as a top 5 quarterback. All the other ones, aside from Rivals, has him in the top 15, but the other recruiting sites have him as a consensus top 10 easily. It's not even close. He's ranked 7th, 8th, but he was always underrated to begin with. And Penn State found a gem. Smart player. He's mobile. I wouldn't necessarily describe him as a true dual threat quarterback, but if he needs to make a play with his legs, he will do that. You could compare him to Sean Clifford in that regard because he's tough, he's cerebral, he makes good decisions, accurate, accurate, accurate. Grunkemeyer completed 66% of his passes, had a 39 touchdown to 9 interception ratio in his final season of high school football. He's going to be enrolling early, works with the same quarterback coach as Drew Aller. So there's that familiarity, the same similar type of development. But I like that he does have this extra bit of athleticism to him. He's going to use his legs when he has to and when he wants to. Okay. He has that capability. He's not a statue or anything like that. He's got a good solid arm. Do I think he needs to redshirt and develop a little more? Absolutely. But your quarterback room gets a lot better now because you have 4 capable signal callers now between Aller, Prabula, Smolik, and in this case, Ethan Grunkemeyer. This was a good find by people want to, talk bad about Mike Yurcich. That's fine. But Mike Yurcich did one good thing, and it was identify Drew Aller and Ethan Grunkemeyer, and now they're both going to be enrolled at Penn State in this quarterback room. What else does this Penn State class do? I alluded to the fact that it checks a lot of boxes. So what are those boxes? You get the quarterback. You get a quarterback in this class. That's very important just in the age of the transfer portal, and you need depth, as we saw that in the 2021 season when Penn State was top 5 and they lost Sean Clifford. You need depth. You got 2 running backs. Penn State is always keying in on trying to get not 1, but 2 running backs, and in this case, you get Corey Smith to go along with Quinton Martin. You get that high profile tight end. Ty Howell continues to impress. You have players with a lot of upside. Maybe guys that Ethan Grunkemeyer falls in that category, right? Of someone who was really underrated, but is shattering expectations. T.A. Cunningham's like that as well. Another player that has just a lot of upside, a former top 10 player in this class. Things changed with where he was going to high school and a lack of playing time and everything else. So those ratings have taken a hit. But I think with the way that Penn State can work with him, that he could maybe get back to that spot if everything goes well. And speaking of Cunningham, Penn State got a lot of defensive linemen in this cycle. They got more defensive tackles, but they also got a couple of defensive ends as well. You got more offensive linemen. You need that as you have guys like Olu Fashanu, Caden Wallace moving on. You need to be able to replenish that and get those guys developing now. So guys like Cooper Cousins, right? Agan Boyer, Garrett Sexton, they need to get in the weight room now and get to Penn State as soon as possible. You got some wide receivers. You got wide receivers with potential. Would I have liked Penn State to get 4 or 5 pass catchers? Absolutely not the case, but you do get 3. You don't just get 1. You get 3 guys with, again, a lot of upside. Peter Gonzalez, Josiah Brown, guys that are recovering from injuries over the course of their high school football careers. Penn State still believed in them. Other schools said, you know what, we're going to back off on our recruiting. Penn State continued to recruit them, and that's why they're committing to the Nittany Lions. And I don't think the defensive backs get enough love in this class of 2024. So Ohio State might be considered wide receiver U in this case, but Penn State continues to crank out just strong secondaries that don't give up all those bulk yardages. It is difficult to go up against Penn State's secondary. Ohio State might have won that game, but it's not like they had all this overwhelming success. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a great game. That's not my point. But it's not like Ohio State was able to air it out. Michigan wasn't able to air it out. These teams weren't able to pick apart the secondary, and Penn State is continuing to do that with the players that are in this class of 2024. There are some things missing because with all of the good and the great in the class of 2024, what did Penn State miss in this class? Let's be honest, a stud wide receiver. It's no disrespect to Peter Gonzalez, Josiah Brown, Tyzier Denmark, who I believe has the most potential in this class. But they did need to find that superstar, someone who could come in and compete and be alongside Quinton Martin, Luke Reynolds, and Liam Andrews in that category of faces of the program. I certainly think all those guys can live up to their potential, but those guys will not be playing right away. Peter Gonzalez, Josiah Brown, Tyzier Denmark are all most likely going to redshirt right away. I would say Denmark is the closest to playing for Penn State and seeing snaps immediately. But in this case, Penn State could have used a high-end 4-star. I don't know how likely they were to get a 5-star. Jeremiah Smith would kind of tease and say, I'm going to visit Penn State. I'm not going to visit Penn State. Jeremiah Smith, that would have been one heck of a find, one heck of a player to commit to Penn State. But we'll see what ultimately happens, right, with him going to Ohio State, being recruited by Florida State, all that stuff. But you needed a true stud, and you don't have that in this cycle. Something else that they're missing, and it's not really necessarily a need, it's a want just because of the age of NIL. Transfer portal, quarterback depth, and that is the second quarterback. Penn State, I'm following what Penn State wanted. James Franklin said that he wanted a second quarterback, and they were trying to recruit and get 2 quarterback commits in this class. You get the one in Ethan Grunkemeyer, but it wouldn't have hurt to get that second passer, right? Just because of this age of college football, you need the more the merrier in this case. Penn State also needed more defensive ends. I like Jalen Harvey. I like Malachi Williams. Those were the highest guys up on their big board, but they missed out on quite another number of defensive ends, pass rushers, edge defenders that they missed out on between other schools, and they just never were able to land that commitment. I wanted to see maybe at least a third, fourth would have been extremely ideal in this case because you are losing Chop Robinson. You are losing Adisa Isaac. Deni Dennis Sutton is probably going to go into the draft in the next cycle. What does that mean for Amin Vanover and Zariah Fisher, who are veterans on the team? Are they going to go in to the next draft? That opens up a lot of things. Now you have guys like Jameel Lyons who are ready to step up, but who are some of those other names? And right now, Jalen Harvey and Malachi Williams, I also think are going to have to redshirt as well. I don't know that they will see playing time immediately either. And Penn State also did not get another player to replace Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is going to go into the 2025 NFL draft. You need that next number 11. Who is that going to be? And this was really a long shot because not a lot of players fit into this category of what number 11 needs to do on this Penn State defense. It's very hard to find Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter types, and that's why you see them every few years. Jamonte Waller seemed to have fit that need, and Penn State had serious interest in Waller, and Waller back at Penn State, just from what I heard from my recruiting sources, but Waller ends up committing to Florida, ultimately flipping to Auburn, and you don't get that next number 11 in waiting. So it's It's tough to do just because it's difficult to live up to those expectations, but I don't see anybody in this class that resembles a future number 11, a LeVar Arrington, Stick City type of player that's just not in this class of 2024. So we'll conclude it here with all of the players that are going to sign with Penn State for early National Signing Day and their rating. And I'm going to go off of what rivals.com has. So here's the class of 2024 for Penn State. Luke Reynolds, tight end, 4-star. Quinton Martin, athlete, 4-star. Ethan Grunkemeyer, quarterback, 4-star. Cooper Cousins, interior offensive lineman, 4-star. Liam Andrews, athlete, defensive tackle, 4-star. Jon Mitchell, cornerback, 3-star. Garrett Sexton, offensive tackle, 3-star. Malachi Williams, edge defender, 4-star. DeJuan Lane, safety, 4-star. Vabu Toure, safety, 3-star. Corey Smith, running back, 4-star. Josiah Brown, wide receiver, 3-star. Jalen Harvey, edge defender, 4-star. Anthony Specca, linebacker, 4-star. T.A. Cunningham, defensive lineman, 4-star. Tyzer Denmark, wide receiver, 4-star. Donovan Harbor, interior offensive lineman, 3-star. Egan Boyer, offensive tackle, 3-star. Caleb Brewer, interior offensive lineman, 3-star. Kari Jackson, linebacker, 4-star. Kenny Wosley, cornerback, 4-star. Antoine Belgrave Shorter, cornerback, 3-star. Xavier Gilliam, defensive lineman, 3-star. Peter Gonzalez, wide receiver, 3-star. DeAndre Cook, defensive lineman, 3-star. That is your class of 2024 for Penn State football.